EVOS are going to have to think, okay, if the Rengar is a threat, what do we take to try and match it? Okay, well, I guess we're just going to see ourselves a support Galio if we're going to run it back with a third game of this Ari. He's just so keen to get these picks, and maybe a little bit uncharacteristic in that second game there, the scoreline, and what, he was down 5k in comparison in this mid lane, so really needs to try and find some form in a crucial moment.
Yeah, so I think the biggest question is, the Ari is the key here. Just because, you know, BURIRAM United always having to rely on Kinemon for that late game, so it's going to be G4's job to eliminate that big threat. So now BURIRAM, curious if this is going to be a Lulu Cat Satan, or support or Lulu, as we haven't really seen the Kai'Sa Lulu combo just yet. And Gragas is still open for the taking. It could be just a swap of support picks so far. And there it is, the Valdez Fiora. We've been waiting for it, and it has arrived if it is going to be locked in. So the scaling jungler now for the side of Valdez, and the possible 1-3-1 setup during the later phases of the game. But don't let that fool you. EVOS would still love to fight the early 5v5s, especially now we're going to get the classic 2v2 matchup, or 1v1 2v2 matchup at the duo lane, which is the Corki versus the Kai'Sa. We'll see if supporter will go Gragas.
That is the big question in my mind right now. What do they look to try and lock in place to break up the party? Perhaps the comeback material for a reverse sweep that EVOS would be so desperate for. Will it be, as you say, one of those bruises, or is it going to be more of the Lulu? Yeah, I like it. I mean, it basically says you've got one goal in mind, hit a charm, hit a hook, or hit any kind of bleed, and blow up that one key target. A wild growth from Lulu nullifies all of that. So I'm liking what BURIRAM are running back here for game 3.
Immediately wild growth, ensure that survives and sustains himself as much as he can, and therefore, you know, the 4-minute mark, fight 5v5 is still available. And I gotta say though, BURIRAM has this comp in the bag. EVOS Esports, though, they have to get a pick. G4 has to find those charms to make sure that they can enable the big 4v5 come the objective fights.
Now, before we step into Libra, that was amazing. Thanks so much, Riku. Well, thanks to Riku, we are now about to step into Game 3. Casters, take it away.
Riku's a mime with the power to fix this stream, Grattan. I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do either. I'm just gonna pretend like, you know, this is an entire Riku show. She's not the one running things from the background, the Shadow Overlord, because we're going into game number 3. It's the third game in this set, and BRU are leading 2-0. TJ, who would have thunk it?
I mean,
some people would have.
It's a close series. I wouldn't have said BURIRAM would be up 2-0, and if they clean the sweep this series, it will be an upset, to be clear. But this was also supposed to be a very close series. Let's talk about this game 3, and we can talk about why I think EVOS actually are going to make this series keep going. It's what you're seeing right now. It's G4 in the middle of the map. He is the early game for EVOS. He's kind of the only early game on the map. And if you're an EVOS fan, you want to see G4 take this Ari and get into lane with it. Shut down Kinemon, especially shut down Archony. That's why they put Archony down in the bottom lane, so that he doesn't just get bullied by this Ari.
Pulling attention away from, well, just having G4 kind of crush Archony in the mid lane. You know, they're trying to funnel Kinemon up again. And it feels like EVOS Esports has doubled back a little bit to the similar idea that they did in game number 1, where they bring Cat Satan back on a big carry here.
Yeah, I mean, we have a late game that probably bends towards BURIRAM, because unlike game number 1, there isn't the same just turbo tank frontline for Cat Satan. So late game probably bends back towards BURIRAM because they have both Kinemon and Archony, who are incredible team fighting mages and AD carries in the late game, whereas EVOS, okay.
I mean, these charms have just been so on point, TJ.
He needs
2
the
for 2,
kills,
and
though.
Kinemon's put low to start. You see the rotation coming through. Rich is right there as well. Supporter will block him, though.
Right, so BURIRAM probably win like the hyper late game, though. That's like post 20 minutes, if they can get that.
But they got this early game. They got G4 and they're making it happen in the mid side. Valdez comes in, dashes in with the mid post. Won't need it. It's still first blood for EVOS Esports.
There it is. Exactly what EVOS needed to do to start this game, because that's the caveat. If BURIRAM get post 20 minutes, they get Orianna, they get Kai'Sa online, they have this Lulu plus the Jarvan tank from the top line, I think they probably win this game. But EVOS have the tools to roll this game during the first 20 minutes. And if they put BURIRAM behind, then BURIRAM don't actually have a very good team to fight from behind. Because Orianna doesn't do enough sustained damage to be relevant if she's not able to really hurt people with her shockwave. If this Orianna falls behind, it's going to be a very long time till her shockwave, till her sustain is actually hurting people in a way that's not true for, say, a Ziggs. And when you're talking about support, and when you're talking about the Lulu, if the Lulu is amping people up with wild growth and they're not able to capitalize on that, Lulu's basically not a champion. Lulu's not adding any value. If you spend the wild growth and it doesn't result in a one-team fight, then you would have been better off having a tank who could take those hits in the front line. So BURIRAM are in trouble if EVOS start this game with a strong lead. They've already got first blood. Let's see what else they can do in the first kind of 10-15 minutes.
And TJ, that's kind of the trap that a lot of teams fall into when they play for a supportive and Chandler type support as well as a mage kind of bot side, right? It's the idea that, hey, we just make it out of laning phase, even things will be okay. But then they kind of neglect to see, like, well, what's the overall map state, because they have a couple of champions that can still dive you, if they get ahead instead. And so it's important to, across the map, to also make sure Tipper and Valdez just aren't running away with the game.
Yeah. And you also, I think, specifically with Lulu, she's so reliant on other people being able to follow up on what she's doing, right? If you polymorph someone, that's great. But if nobody dies as a result of that polymorph because your team doesn't have enough damage, then, I don't know, it's not even a very effective form of CC. They can still move around. So there's a very distinct onus on BURIRAM to do exactly what they're doing and try and contest the early game. I wouldn't be going for a fight here, but they're doing a good job being here.
They start things off with that polymorph, but like you mentioned, you don't have the damage to take anybody down. Then what does it matter? They jump in either way. Shiba's come in big with the Cataclysm blocking off EVOS esports. They're unable to dive them deeper in the jungle, but you still have to deal with Tipper, who've come in with the first knockup. You still have Noel, but he's playing a tanky Java. Not that much damage, cannot take them down. 2 more to EVOS.
And there's the EVOS early game they needed. It was a little dicey. Noel went a little hard. It was dangerous. But Valdez manages to clean up the Rift Herald. EVOS win the team fight. They've got 2,000 in the bank as the lead, and that lead is going to grow once they throw down the Rift Herald. This is what they need to do. This is a very strong start for EVOS.
Very strong start indeed, and this is exactly the doomsday scenario for BRU. I mean, we talked about it so much in the early game. If they're allowing them to get ahead, we saw what happened with Kitamon as well. I mean, we don't even have to think so much about the others. Just Catshade, and he's already coming for 1 full item.
Yeah, and do a little gold comparison in the mid lane as well. And look at what happened to Archony, because he was stuck down in the bottom lane with slower farm, not able to get out into the early fights as well, dying in the early fights. Or not dying, sorry, getting forced out of the early fights by the focus. And that means that he essentially died in the early fights and didn't get any credit for anything. They didn't find any kills. And he's broke. He's like me, Grandin.
That's not entirely true, TJ. Well, we'll see if EVOS esports are able to get a little bit more gold line in their pockets. They find the charge in the bomb side with the Rift Tower, a little bit more localized gold there. And a good response from BRU, but look at EVOS still stepping aggressively here, though.
Now watch this dance round the side. If we see big CC from Rich, if he finds big stun,
what are they looking to try and go for? I mean, it's the re-engage. Rich finds him with a 2-man taunt to boot. They take him down, supported first, but they've locked down G4. He's stuck on the turret, but you're stuck in there with EVOS esports, who found 2 there as well.
Can Noel save the turret? No. Now he's in trouble.
Absolutely in trouble here, TJ. Noel's gonna have to face off against Valdez, against Tipper, who have become massive in this game. It's doom and gloom for BRU in game number 3 as EVOS go 6-1.
Rich just sits there at the recall, knowing his team's got it. I'm the support. I don't want to take the kill, he says. Kills will go over to EVOS. A little bit sloppy that G4 died. If I'm giving notes, if I'm being real critical, G4 shouldn't have been in position to get shut down. It was very well played by Shiba to get that kill. And of course, because that took so long, there was a trade. And this top lane turret did fall. I believe that gold mostly went on to Kinemon, which is a very good state of affairs. BURIRAM really want Kinemon to be a carry, so it's not all bad. But I also don't want to paint that as an even trade because it was really bad for BURIRAM. EVOS continuing to accelerate their early game. They get the first turret kill and they grow this kill lead drastically. They're going to be so far ahead for the next 10 minutes easily. And if BURIRAM want to come back into this game, they need to either find a miracle fight or make this game somehow last 20 minutes and come back at death's door with a beautiful team fight, Orianna, Shockwave, everything goes wrong.
And EVOS Esports continue on with the tempo, continue with the pressure to get the mid lane turret. And I mean, while we're doing a stock take on everything, you look at EVOS Esports. They got the Rift Tower, they got the Cloud Drake. Granted, for BRU, this is probably the least impactful dragon to lose, but it still hurts them. And EVOS Esports, well, they've just been able to run away with this early game. And for a team that's really only had this one early game champion in G4, they're doing a lot with it. Now here we have it again. Rich has come in and given Veldis a killing streak. Put this guy on a scholarship, honestly.
Oh my god. Shiva will be in trouble here as well as Veldis, Rich, and G4 stay in the area. They're not even needed. Wow.
TJ, I can't tell if you're impressed or unimpressed. I mean, what's happening here? What's going on in your head right now?
It's just working. It's just EVOS have showed up to work and they're
chugging
doing
along.
the job. You know, there are some people that are really standout performers. You're like, wow, you're going above and beyond. EVOS aren't doing that. I'm not going to lie. They're showing up to work on time. Not early, but on time. They're doing the job they're required to do, and that's going to get them the game unless BURIRAM do something absolutely remarkable. The only place I even see that happening is maybe Kinnabon just goes huge. But failing Kinnabon getting a pentakill, this game's pretty much over.
Yeah, and this was the team that we were looking towards. I mean, both of them have the best players in the world in their respective positions. And it just seems like EVOS Esports have finally come online. They've woken up the idea. They're coming back in and go take down Noel.
This is the first draft I liked from EVOS. This is the first time we left the draft, and I was like, oh, wow, I think this is really in EVOS's wheelhouse to execute this game. Because playing through G4, okay.
I mean, 10-1 at this point. It looks like every fight that you take, you're gonna lose. BRU wills to commit. That Shockwave comes across, but Cat Satan takes virtually no damage from it.
Yeah. And that's what I meant by Orianna's pretty worthless if she's behind. And this game was just, hey, we're going to play through G4's early game. We're going to play through the fact that he can land charms, Rich can find engage. And if you're telling me, hey, our game plan for EVOS is that G4 finds charms and Rich finds engage, that's a pretty good game plan. That's a game plan I'll sign on to any day of the week. Whereas previously, it was a lot on Cat Satan winning fights, Cat Satan being the key carry of this team. And that's not been how EVOS have played historically. Cat Satan's always been an element of the team, but he's been an insurance policy. So the earlier two games where EVOS were relying on him to take over the game and carry it felt a little bit uncomfortable to me.
Well, goodbye, Noel. I mean, he tries to get away, but will fall to Tipper eventually. This is revenge of the Baron lane. Tipper's had a rough first two games, while the third one is not going to be the same here, TJ. And, well, very frankly, I have to say, you know, what feels like the difference to me, it's supporter being on this Lulu.
Yeah, I'm not a giant fan of Lulu into this draft, but they needed. Okay.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just giving it to you. They finally find something back. They take down Veldis here. But is this going to be enough to pull them back in, to hold them until that 20-minute mark?
No. Sorry, was that rhetorical, or was I supposed to answer that?
I would take the answer, yeah. That's a nice four-man calculus when they come across, though, with the Flag and Drag as well, but he'd lack the damage to follow through with. They've taken down Sheba and Archer, and he's not even alive for these fights, man.
It's like watching cheese run into a grater. You know? There's just nothing that's going to happen. I don't know what the expected result is. For the cheese gets grated.
I love that expression, TJ. Can I use it for my next fight?
Sure.
All right, there we have it. Well, EVOS Esports, they're going to stop the Baron now, but it's looking a little bit risky. They're dropping down low quickly. And they don't have a Lulu or anybody off the light to keep them topped up, so they're going to back away. BRU, at the very least, still holding on to their chances for this game. It's 11 minutes in, almost 12, and it's 15 to 2, 12,000 ahead for EVOS.
And I want to kind of use this game as a data point, because a lot of the time people will come into streams like this and they'll be like, what? This game isn't close. This team must be terrible. Okay. 2v3. Can they do it?
Well, they're going to run away because they know Rich is right around the corner as well. They hit a block this. They're going to get the taunt. Misses it. Nice dash away from the survivors of BRU here.
Okay. So a lot of times people look at scorelines like this and they make very negative judgments. BURIRAM are really good, and I don't even think their draft this game is especially bad. It's just that they pinned the entire game on G4 and Rich not dominating the early game, on G4 and Rich not snowballing early leads into Valdez, into Cat Satan, and EVOS were able to execute on. So even though this game looks really one-sided, it came down to a very even, 50% odds of can G4 execute this really aggressive thing? Can he find early kills? And the answer was yes, but that's player play. This isn't a game that was lost in draft. This isn't a game that is a telling story of BURIRAM being much worse. Like, that's not what's going on here. This is actually two teams drafting reasonable drafts and playing very hard, and EVOS just being able to execute on some remarkable early aggression, as they had to win this game.
And it's turned out well for EVOS Esports. They invested heavily in this third game draft, and well, it looks like they've been able to execute it well enough. They find a catch on the Shiva, who's had to flash away, committed that summoner spell. Nice shockwave, disengages for the rest of the team, but BRU still playing on their back foot.
Yeah, I'm a little worried for EVOS, like in the back of my mind. I'm thinking about the timer, because you can see Kinemon's damage is like coming online. So
okay, G4 is gonna go in aggressive here though. Rich uses the ultimate, but he's back in the Baron pit. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. Shiva's trying to survive, will get taken down in the midst of 4 on the side of EVOS. Noel's walk back in now, looking for the flag and drag, misses out against Tipper. Pulls him into the Cataclysm, into the cage, but he gets pulled back by the Emperor Hen. Here we have it, Kinemon eyes on this carry, the burden of carry on this Kai'Sa, but Cheese running into a greater, and BRU will fall back against EVOS.
Kinemon's so good. I don't think he's died yet this game. Oh no, he died once. But it's still remarkable. Kinemon and Archini aren't out of this game, and that serves as a reminder of it. BURIRAM definitely can still turn this game if we go to that 20-minute mark, like I was saying. And I do think that's hard, but EVOS are kind of playing this mid-game a little bit slow, Grandin. The hot pot's still boiling, and that's a little bit worrying, frankly, if you're an EVOS fan. Because
you're simmering it here, TJ. It's up to a simmer. You want to see the boil, but EVOS Esports, they're not impatient. You know, you let the frogs sit in the pot.
Yeah, but if you're in the next room, you're starting to smell some good cooking, you know? And that's a little bit worrying. That's BURIRAM kind of coming online.
Still a ways away from that, but we're starting to see exactly what you mentioned there, TJ. Tipper is now stepping in aggressively against 2, and yet BRU are stepping away, giving respect to Tipper, who's faced off against the 2 of them, ignoring any potential threat, flashes forward, won't be able to find anything. Shiva's going to come in now. They're looking towards the Baron, down to 2,000, so they have to make a play now, have to commit to which, have to try and steal it away. It's going to go over to Velda, securing it instead. They come back in, so Wild Grove get the knockup back onto J4. Kinemon's dashing in. It's not going to take them down, but Catson has way too much damage as a double gunner comes across, looking at a third. EVOS Esports will find the teammates.
And BURIRAM had to stop that Baron. They couldn't do it. And so EVOS get the wipe. They'll end this game with about 5 minutes to spare before BURIRAM come online. And they will take their first game in this series, meaning we've got a series on our hands as EVOS are 1-2.
And it was surprising.